Hi there, welcome to another video looking at Axis and Ohs. Previous video I made was about creating a speaking checklist, and technically it works fine. I just think I prefer being able to actually see the checklist as well as hear it. And I was sort of pondering on how we could do that. And just by coincidence, there's been a new version of Axis and Ohs released over the last few days, and it's got this checklist creation tool in it. So I thought have a little look at it today, and I think it's going to do pretty much what I want it to do. So if you bear with me. I'm going to run Axis and Ohs in the offline mode, and I'm going to simulate the aircraft I'm actually working on at the moment. So if I double click on there, it'll load the profile for that aircraft, but I don't actually have to have the simulator running at the same time. But the tool we're going to look at today is here, the checklist creator. And probably the first thing you need to do is just check that your voices are working. So if you go here to the settings, you can choose from a couple of different voices. It depends on which voices you actually got installed on your machine. And so I'm going to check that one up here.
This is a test.
And you can hear that it's working. You can change the volume and the speed.
This is a test.
For now, that works fine. So I know I've got a working voice. I'm working on one of the Black Square aircraft, a King Air, and it comes with a manual of these extensive checklists. And so there's a number of checklists for sort of ordinary operation, and it goes down to about here. And also there's some checklists for the sort of abnormal and emergency procedures. There's quite a lot of checklists. And what we can do with that, I shrink that down out of the way. I'm just going to call this demo. So you need to give it a name. And I would suggest keeping it fairly short and avoid spaces. And you'll probably see why when we move along a little bit. So I'm just going to create a kind of fake couple of checklists. So if we call this one here before starting engine, and that's going to have some items in it. So perhaps before you start the engine, you're going to want to make sure that the chocks are removed. And you can put some response that they're going to say back. So we can say well, you had to do it really, didn't you? And then we'll have another new item. Make sure the doors are shut. So and we'll have a third item in here. Seatbelts fastened. Something along those lines, and the response will be, let's have a check again. This line here is if you find that it's not pronouncing something properly, you can put in something phonetically to make it say this line instead of that line there. That's basically what it does. Right, so let's look down the side here. We've got a save option, and this will save the work in progress, so you can load it back in. So if I save this somewhere, and I'll put that into my files checklists, and I'll call it demo, that's fine. Just to show you what could happen. So if you come back to another day, tools, checklist creator, load, and go and find that again. So in my files, in my checklists, and it's my demo. And we're back where we started. So we create a checklist, and then we start another checklist. So we'll have starting engine. That could be now. There is one little weird thing I've discovered so far, is if you're here and you put a new section, it tends to do that and drop that down there beneath there. It's not a problem, that's highlighted, so we can then push that up and promote that up. It's because I hadn't typed anything in for that new option, it just removed it. And if we do a new section now, so it does work, it's fairly flexible, just keep an eye on that one. Anyway, let's start a new section. So it could be a taxi section, something like that. And then we'll put a new item in after that. Now, if you take the tick off of it, it'll become an item that doesn't get read out. It'll be there visible in the list, but it'll be just something that you need an explanation or something like that. I'm just making this up as I go along. Okay, anyway, I've got some things there that I can show you how it works, and of course we would then save that again to be absolutely sure. So again, in my checklists, and we'll save that and overwrite it. Yep, okay. Right, so the next thing to do is to create the checklist. So I click on here and it says export finished. And what it does is it puts it into a folder in your documents in Lorby Axis and Ohs files. There's one area for scripts, and it creates a folder automatically, demo. You've got no control over where it puts it, and it has to be here for the next part to work anyway. This is where it expects the files to be. And it's created some script files, and they look like this. So if you see my previous videos, you'll have seen how this works. And of course, we could then allocate each one of those to, say, a key on the Stream Deck, which was in a previous video. So I'm not going to go through that now, because it doesn't really take us any further forward. We've got buttons that we can press, and then it speaks to us. One thing you need to be aware of, though, is when it's working, you need to be able to send a command to it to make it move on. You have to tell it that you've checked an item. And I will bring my Stream Deck up to show you what that looks like. So these are the ones that are calling, ones I did previously, where it calls the script file, makes it run. And I've got a button here which tells it it's a K event, a key down event, AAO checklist checked. And so when I press on that, it knows that I've actually done the item. There's a pause button and there's a stop. So they're the main features. There's the pause one and there's the stop one. So you need to have some way of doing it. In Axis and Ohs, if you haven't got a Stream Deck or something like that, you can always allocate a key. So I've done one here. So on my keyboard, if I press the comma, it'll send the command that I've checked it. And you need to do a bit of hunting around to make sure you're not using a key on the keyboard that's allocated to something else. So that's actually, a bit of a search for you. Anyway, that's how we're going to run the checklist. Anyway, this is not really that much more use to us, but what it also does is it creates a little website for us. It's tempting to click on here, but that will show what it looks like, but it won't be active. It has to be called from a browser. So in our browser here, we are trying to get it to look at itself. When Axis and Ohs is running, it runs like a mini web server. This is called a web API. It's a not very intelligent web server, but it's acting like a web server. So here, if we're working on the same machine, the easiest way to do is to go for the local host. We're telling you you're looking at yourself. And specifically, we're looking through port 43380. And this is all in the documentation here. So that's where we're going. And we're looking in the web API. And we're looking for this particular file, which was the demo file that I put up there. So that's the demo folder. And index.html. And as I said, it's a bit of a dumb web server. A properly fully blown web server would assume the index. So you just put demo and it would find the index. But there it is. There's the checklist sections. And there's the ones I've got here of the before starting engine. So if I click on here to say start doing that.
Before starting engine. Chocks removed.
And if I press the comma key on my keyboard,
Chocks away.
It's
doors closed and locked.
Or I can click on here to say I've done it.
Check. Seat belts fastened. Check. Before starting engine complete. Starting engine is next. Starting engine. Clear prop. Clear. Beacon light on. Beacon on. Starting engine complete. Taxi is next.
And if you remember back to the previous one, I didn't tick the box. I want it just to be a piece of text. So that's what a piece of text looks like. If I click on here,
Taxi. Taxi complete.
It'll just skip over it, won't speak it, and it says we finished. So that's basically how that works. Now, we're looking at it itself, this local host thing. But what we can actually do is to use, I'm using a Kindle Fire tablet, could be an iPad or something. We could actually, if we type in this, but instead of localhost, actually put the IP address of your computer in there. This will work here as well. So if I click on there, that should work. Oops, why is that not working? I have to type the whole thing in. But now, using the actual address. If I type that into my tablet that's on the same network, it should get there. It will probably fail the first time that you do it because you probably need to open that port up. So to do that, if you go to Windows Security, into the firewall there, and ask for advanced settings. On the inbound rules, you'll need to create a new rule. And if you click on new rule, there's a wizard that will talk you through. So we're going to be doing a port. And we'll put in that 43380 in here and just work your way along. The important thing, if I can't start there, is that you'll be given, let's go and look at the properties, advanced. It'll ask you whether you want to be able to access it through the domain or private. And it's probably the public one that you want to click. I've only got public clicked and it's working. If that's unticked, it doesn't work. So I'm turning off everything else just for security. I'm keeping that there on there as public. Okay. So you don't need it switched on if you're going to just look at it locally. Say you're going to have it on a second screen or something like that. But if you're going to access it using a tablet or another computer, then you need to open that port and that should work. If you've got a different firewall other than the Microsoft firewall running, then you need to find out how to adjust your firewall. I know that some people also have a firewall on their routers which filter stuff going even over the private network. Again, if you're not getting to it, it could be there that you've got a problem. Anyway, that's the basics of how it works. One of the other parts you can do with it is you can actually import a text file into here. So I've got in my checklist files on the King Air, I've got one here which is the aircraft performance. So it's not really a checklist, but it's an information list of all of the performance, the speeds, the V speeds, engine limitations. And the way it works is if you put it in capital letters, it sees that as a start of a new checklist or a new section. If it's mixed case like this, then it's an item. These aren't going to be ones that you tick on. They're just for me to read in case I need to reference a speed or something like that. So what I'll do is I will import that one and show you how that works. So import, and it's in my MSFS files, checklists, King Air, and it's my aircraft performance. We bring that in and we give it a name. So I'm going to call it KA, but keeping that as short as possible. Again, I'm going to have to type it in on my tablet, so I want it to be quick and easy to type. And that's why I said I don't really want to put spaces in here. Spaces in URLs are a pig, so don't do that. And you can see they're all unticked. You can of course edit this. You can change things and make them tickable if you want to. Now they're in. But anyway, we will go straight away and create that checklist. So rather than demo, is that coming up? Here we are. Aircraft performance. So I've got that there that I can look at. I can go using the back arrow here and choose V speeds directly rather than have to go through the next bit. So that's useful to have that as reference. And if you wanted to create a file to import for items in a checklist that need checking, I would suggest using a proper web processor to start the process on that one. What you need to do is to put a tab in between the item and then what you want the response to be. And these are actually taken directly from the manual. I'm doing a bit of a cut and paste job. If you have not seen this before, some people haven't seen this in Word, that if you turn that little mark on there, that's what it looks like, and you can't see the tab marks. And if you click on here, you can actually see the tabs that you've put in. Then I save that as a text file. Let's get rid of that. And that's it exported as a text file. So again, let's restart this. And I want to import and bring those in. So you can see the ticks next to it. And I'll call this KA demo 2, just for the sake of something I can find again easily. And we'll create that. And this is the one I've started on, and I'm getting working on this one. So if we click on there, you can see it beginning to work. Now, there are a couple of errors I've noticed in here where I've got a few things, something wrong, and I haven't got around to editing it yet. And what that often means is I've put accidentally put 2 tabs in, and it can't cope with that. So if we look through here, cabin master, which is in before starting. I can't actually see what's wrong with this one. But here, it's almost impossible to see, but I think there might be 2 tabs there. Let's try putting a tab in there. Yeah, there was something weird with the tab going on there. So sometimes it's the one before that causes the problem, or there's a couple of times where I put a tab at the end by accident and it's thrown things out. So you need to look carefully and see how many tabs you've actually got in. But occasionally it's a tiny little tab in there because there's not a lot of space for it to put it in. And that's what causes the problem. Anyway, that's basically how it works. But that's the tool there. And it's exporting it, and it creates both the script and the web page version automatically for you. And then it's a question of calling it either on your local machine or from another machine on your network. What I'm wondering is, once I've got a number of aircraft running that I'm working on, and each of them may have 3 or 4 entries, because I may have the normal checklists. I may have another checklist for the emergencies, which I'll probably keep on a separate one because there's so many checklists, and I might have the performance one on another one. What I might have to do is to create a web page. You can create your own web pages and put them in that web API area. Again, the functionality is fairly limited, but basically a set of buttons that you can click on to fire up the checklist you're after. So that might be a way forward. I used to make websites years ago, but I haven't done it for about 15 years. And I thought, oh, I'll knock one of those up. And then my mind went blank. I've forgotten most of what I ever did know. And of course, HTML and cascading style sheets and stuff have all moved on since I last did any web work. So that's going to be a journey of rediscovery for me. I hope that's been helpful. I hope it's useful to you. And when I finish doing this King Air, I'll probably do a couple of videos on that. There's a few interesting programming techniques I've kind of thought out to make it work. Okay, so I'll see you at some point in the future.